Hello and welcome to our live stream. Today is I'm a little bit outside of my normal schedule because I normally do it every week. But this week I'm doing it on Friday because Sunday I'm going to be actually on the road. I'm going to be in Cancun. Not in Cancun, in Cozumel. So I decided I'd do a quick live stream for the week. I will be trying to do a live stream like I did from Cabo with my iPad from Cozumel so that you can at least have a live stream from there, just like I did the last time. Today we're going to have our weekly, what I have found is apart from doing topics, a lot of people like to basically ask questions, and I get a lot of interaction between everybody. And so I decided that I'm going to do this a little bit more often than just talking. The other thing is just a couple of things. Just so you got a sneak peek of my new house. The background here is actually our dining room / kitchen / of our new house. And that little one there that's laying down is one of my little girls. And I am working on a video on the new house. It's kind of a tour and an explanation of the construction here in Mexico. And I'm working on that video. Also, I haven't had chance to, from the last video, the safety video that I did, and also from the last live stream. I don't know, I forgot Dana Weisner, I believe it was, that asked a couple of questions. From my last live stream, one of the questions was the regularization program. I had made a comment that Huatuco and Merida are probably the most lenient. That was the last I had heard, but these things are changing on a daily basis. They change sometimes on a weekly basis, daily basis. So I couldn't tell you which one is the easiest one or which one's the most, which one is if they're remaining the same. I know San Miguel changed their regulations. So, you know, it could change anyway. Also, the other thing that you had asked is about family unification. If there's any other places that it's easier to do family unification. Actually, family unification is a totally different process. And for those of you that don't know what family unification is, for example, if you're married to a Mexican citizen, that's one way of getting family unification. But you don't have to go through the consulate. You can apply for your residency because you're married to a Mexican citizen or you have a Mexican child. They can petition for you. Also, if you get, for example, residency, let's say both of you don't qualify because you have to qualify separately. What will happen a lot of times, what couples will do, or even with family, one will gain the residency, like their temporary or permanent residency, and then they can actually go for family reunification. I believe Ms. Weisner is married to a Mexican citizen, so she would probably be doing this family unification under being married to a Mexican citizen, because she's made that comment in the past. So basically, that is a standard procedure. That has the regularization program is a special program. The family unification program is not a special program. It's pretty much the same no matter where you go. You pretty much qualify. You pretty much put in your paperwork. The great thing about family unification is that you don't have to go to a Mexican consulate outside the United States. Or the other great thing is for those of you who are worried that only one of you qualifies or they only qualified one of you, you can go into Mexico and go bring your family member in with you, and they can come in on a tourist FMM, and then you can actually get your residency and then apply for your family member to get their residency also. No financial solvency. That's another way of no financial solvency, but the other person has to meet the financial solvency. Or if you're married to a Mexican citizen, there's no financial solvency at all. Just a little bit about my house. Back there in the back, right behind me, there's steel beams. We went for the industrial look. Also, that wall right there that you see, it's an actual volcanic rock wall that's actually from the famous volcano in Puebla. That is volcanic rock from there. The table is pure granite. And I'm going to get to show you a little bit more of the house pretty soon when I get that video together. We have shot a couple of things. The only thing I haven't shot yet is my studio. So I'm going to finish that up and, of course, get back from my vacation and hopefully give you guys a tour of the new house. And so today is an open discussion. So anybody have any questions? Oh, and the other thing from my last video, someone made a comment. One of the suggestions that I always give when I say to travel, and I'm also letting more people get in the room here. One of the things that I always say is always travel with traffic. And somebody make it a comment. And also, I've also had other comments on my lives that, I like to drive the speed limit and there's either people going too slow or too fast. And, or mostly too fast. And I don't want to drive real fast. My point there in staying with traffic is not necessarily that you have to drive, keep it going 100 miles an hour with everybody else. My point in staying with traffic is that a lot of these highways that I'm discussing can get very isolated. So what you want to do is you want to make sure there's some kind of traffic. It doesn't mean that you have to stick in the middle of the traffic. I just want to clarify that. And the other thing is that this person also made a comment about traveling in caravans. People like to travel in caravans. There's a lot to be said about that. But at the same time, if you travel in a caravan, there are some safety features to traveling in the caravan, but you also have to have a lot of communications between you when you're traveling in a caravan. For example, what happens if they do try to stop you? Everybody needs to scatter in different directions because usually if a robber or a highway robber, they usually have 4 or 5 trucks. Well, if they have to follow 4 or 5 people, sometimes it'll confuse them. So sometimes it's to your advantage. Also, when you're driving in a caravan, you might not want to drive bumper to bumper. Stay a little bit more spread out so that you do have, because this person made the comment that I like to have a lot of space in case I need to turn around. Hello, Robin from and I'd like to welcome Robin, Cindy, Kai's here, Steffi's here, Wilfredo's here, Sedona, Todd Meek, Kai, Prophet is here. I'd like to welcome you all to the live stream. And Robin's coming in from H-Town. I actually lived in South Texas for a while. Houston was actually my first job, my first agency. Our district office was in Houston. Our main office was in Houston. So there is some, truth to that. I am going to try to answer those questions, but I've been too busy packing. So, so that is where I'm at right now. That's why I haven't been able to answer those questions. But I figured if you're online right now, I'm answering the question, and I'll give you a written response as soon as I can. And when maybe from the pool, the side beach. Actually, we don't go to the pool as much, but maybe from while I'm sitting on the beach, and also basically I'll if you watch this later, trying to answer your question there. Steffi, let's go with the first one here. Will be number 1, completing Cajen and Leon next week, scouting resident locations, looking to see great dentist and eye doctor. On number 3, no Spanish yet. Well, yeah, I think you're on a good track, Steffi. And actually, Leon, I don't know of any. Where there's in that area, in the Guanajuato area, which is as close as Querétaro. I did a lot of my dental work in Querétaro. They have a lot of real good dentists there. I don't know about Leon, but Querétaro has a lot of good medical facilities there. So congratulations on your contest, Steffi, and pretty soon you're going to be one of us that lives down here. Renee, Maxie, welcome from New Braunfels. Anybody, any questions, anything that you want to bring up? I pretty much brought up all the housekeeping things. Let me see. Kai's asking, and actually, doesn't have to be necessarily about immigration or canje. For example, you want to ask me questions about my house, about my personal questions too. I'm an open book unless I tell you it's personal, and I can't answer it. Kai, what are some of your favorite things about Mexico? Any favorite cities, events, music, museums, vacation destinations, etc.? I'll tell you what, Kai, my favorite things about Mexico is everything about Mexico. But I do have some favorites here in Mexico. There's a lot of things. Now, I do live in Monterrey. And a lot of people say, why the heck Monterrey? Because it's a big city. It is convenient. It's close to the border. Also, I have family here. And I have a rich history here in Monterrey. So that's why I'm here in Monterrey. But we really love San Miguel de Allende. Both my wife and I love San Miguel de Allende. Unfortunately, due to personal issues, both family and health, I was kind of forced to come back here to Monterrey. We've made a decision, unfortunately, to sell our house in San Miguel, but we love that house. I'll post it on my Facebook group. If anybody's interested, we're selling the house, but so you can see pictures of our house there in San Miguel. It was definitely a paradise there. We love San Miguel de Allende. Also, we love traveling all throughout Mexico. Every piece of Mexico, part of Mexico has something different. Yes, we went to Cabo. That was the first time I've ever been to the Baja area. That was beautiful. Beach-wise, we always usually go to Cancun, Cozumel. We make at least a trip there once a year. It is one of our preferred places, but it's not our favorite place. We still have a couple of things on our bucket list. We still want to go to Oaxaca. And actually down in the central part of Mexico, you're going to be, I think, Kai, in Mexico City. The food, the music, the culture, the museums is absolutely phenomenal. And if you're not in Mexico City, all the outlying places outside of Mexico City for example, San Miguel de Allende, you're within 3 or 4 hours of San Miguel de Allende. That has rich in history right next to San Miguel de Allende, and which I might actually mention right now, is we're coming up on Mexican Independence Day. And right next to San Miguel de Allende, right down the road, is Hidalgo, where the famous priest, Dolores Hidalgo, did the grito. And actually on September 6th, it's actually September 16th, it's Independence Day, but it starts on September 15th. The president comes out at 11 o'clock at night. I've done a video on this, and does the grito of Dolores. And what they do basically, and I've gone and visited the church and actually stood on the same steps where he declared independence, Mexico's independence from Spain. And in Querétaro, they actually have a lot of historical sites where, for example, where they planned the actual independence, the overthrow of the independence from Spain. So there's a lot of history down in Central Mexico. That's what we love about Central Mexico. And we still have a lot to go. And I just, I love the culture. I grew up in the culture too. So it's just something, you know what? Mexico is something, it's a beautiful place to live. And, a lot of times I talk about, a lot of people want to come here for financial reasons. Don't come here just for financial reasons. And $1,000 a month is really not a lot to live here on. But, a lot of people have pointed out to me, they can live frugally. And the thing, though, that I try to point out is, come here to Mexico to fall in love with Mexico and enjoy the culture, enjoy the life here. I'm 10 times more stress-free here. And the more you adapt to the culture, even the frustrating parts of the culture, because you might not be the same as what you're used to back in your home country, it's something for us, we see it as an adventure. And yes, it's frustrating sometimes, but we love it because it's something new. And if you embrace that, I tell you, if you come here to Mexico and you embrace Mexico for everything Mexico is, you'll love Mexico. You'll never want to go back. You know what? People ask me, because I come from the United States. I was born in the United States. I served my country for 30 years. And I mean, I'm not saying that uh, uh, but people ask me, will you ever go back to the United States? And I say, no, I won't. That's just my own personal opinion because I've gotten so, and even though I do go back to the United States and I still have a house back in the United States, I will never go back to live permanently back in the United States. And, and that's just because it's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful, and even, you know what? I live in Monterrey, Mexico, a big city. And so I don't go out into the country or anything else, but you know, I got to live that in San Miguel de Allende. There's something for everybody here. And that's what I try to express. Don't just come here because you can't afford to live in the United States on $1,500 a month. That can be a deciding factor, and that's all right. But what I am telling you to do is when you get here and you got that $1,500 a month and you make it stretch and you have fun, then you won't be upset. You won't be like, why did I leave? And I wish I could go back. And if I just made more money, I just wouldn't have to come here in the first place. And I hear all those things, and you don't have to. You can love Mexico, fall in love with Mexico, and even living on that $1,500 a month in a minimalist lifestyle. I know a lot of people that do that, and they just love it here. They just love it here. Steffi, thanks. Thanks. Querétaro is on our travel list. We'll check for medical there. Yeah. And actually, Steffi, a good place to check for doctors is a website called Doctoralia. Doctoralia is D-O, like doctor, and then RELIA.com. And then what you do is you look up their specialists, and they have and you just, if it's in Spanish, you just put the translate in the browser, and you can see reviews for the doctors. And that's how we used to find a lot of the doctors. What bank to bank with heard they're a tax just for having money in the bank? There's no tax that I've been charged for having money in the bank here, and I didn't totally get your question with Chisme, BW Chisme, but I have never been taxed. I don't know if you're talking about the United States. There's some taxes. Maybe you have money in the bank and you get interest. We don't have money in the bank. We have money in the bank here in Mexico, and we don't get taxed. Let me explain to you the way the taxes work here. If you have a job here in Mexico, and you actually get paid in pesos and you work for a Mexican company, then you have a Mexican tax liability, okay? Now, here's the thing. You still have to, if you're a U.S. citizen, U.S. citizens are tax citizens. They're citizens worldwide, no matter where they're at. But Mexico has a tax treaty. There is a requirement that if you do make money in Mexico, you still have to report it to the IRS, but you get a tax credit for the money that you pay taxes on already. So you don't get double taxed. And vice versa. If you make money in the United States, like I have a pension, I'm retired, I pay U.S. taxes because it's already taken out. And there's a tax treaty that says that, okay, your salary is not taxed by the Mexican government because you already pay taxes to the U.S. Now, there's certain things that you do have to pay taxes on. So there is an agency that, you do have to pay taxes when you buy a car, when you basically certain things. There's different taxes on. When you sell property. Now, when you do sell property, like we're going to sell our house in San Miguel, since it's the only property, our first home, we'll get a credit, I think up to $250,000 a person, a tax credit. So we won't owe taxes on the house. Taxes, and then VW Chisme, what agency to use to research property title and taxes owed? VW Chisme, let me explain to you the way actually it works here. When you buy a house or you buy property, I don't know of any website. I know in the United States you can go to the county tax assessor and you can see how behind someone is on taxes on a piece of property, any kind of liens on a piece of property or whatever. The problem here in Mexico is everything goes through what they call a notario, and nothing's, I don't know how you do explain it. It's not coordinated in a sense. And when you buy a piece of property here, the notario is the one it's like a title search. Whenever your title company does a title search, they're the ones that'll go and they'll see if there's any kind of liens on the property. They'll research the property title and the taxes owed. Some towns, you can go get that. That's public record. You can check on the property to make sure there's no liens or whatever. But when you buy a piece of property, but you have to also be careful because there has been known notarios to be in cahoots with people that are selling property, especially in the Merida area. There's been a lot of property scams where they sell property that they shouldn't be. That's ejido land. There's several people that do that there and have gotten in a lot of trouble. And so you have to be a little bit careful. But if you really want to, like, for example, we also, when we built our house, we could go down to the city to make sure that they pulled out the right permits and everything else. But there's no real company that will tell you, like, where you can do a title search. The actual notario, you can pay a notario to do a title search for you. But your best bet is when you find a piece of property, that's part of the process. They do an actual title search. They make sure it's free of anything and the title is correct and everything's in proper order. There's no fines owed on it because you have to pay the fines if there's some fines where they didn't get permits. That's one of the biggest problems you have here is that the original contractor never got permits, construction permits, and you could end up owing $10, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 in fines before you can even sell your house. So you just got to make sure that all of that stuff is in line. And some of the people now when you are selling a house, the person that's selling the house to you has to take care of those fines before they can actually sell it. Robin Cameron, is the infrastructure improving? I read on various sites that electrical power is sporadic, specifically in Querétaro. Actually, Robin, infrastructure here, it's kind of a mixed bag. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm in Monterrey, but even in San Miguel de Allende, I'm talking to you from a 1 gigabit fiber optic internet line. Just like actually I have a faster internet than I had in the United States, and actually faster internet than I've ever had in the United States. I've never had fiber optic internet till I got here to Mexico. I have water, city services, electrical services. Now, here's the issue that Mexico is facing right now. And with that being said, infrastructure, especially where I live, the infrastructure is newer. Infrastructure, yes, there's great infrastructure here. But there's a catch to the infrastructure. And this is what's happening in Querétaro. It's also happening in Monterrey. We're suffering here in Mexico and even in Baja. We're suffering from a lot of issues with, for example, water. And so, for example, you'll have cuts. They'll cut the water off in certain places. And they'll cut the water off in certain areas. Or we have electrical, for example, one of the issues that the electric company is having is in a lot of the older areas, they didn't build out the infrastructure with the growth. So a lot of transformers will blow. That's probably what's happening in Querétaro. And there's been such a demand for transformers that CFE, because the electrical commission is federal, it's the same electricity company all throughout Mexico. And sometimes what will happen is you have shortages of transformers. So yes, they'll cut the power, stuff like that. Now where I live, do I have power outages? Yeah, but it's not more than 15 minutes, 10 minutes. Do they cut the water off on us? Yes, they do, but it's probably because they're repairing a line close to here. So it all depends where you live. But infrastructure wise, everybody has this image of Mexico being, I mean, I hate to say this, but, oh, do you have cars there? I mean, I've had this happen to me before. Are there actually cars there, or do you ride around on horses? That I know that's an ignorant thing I know everybody here knows that they have cars here, but I'm going a little bit to the extreme. But what I'm trying to explain is that that power, it can be sporadic, but if you live in certain areas, it's not. For example, here in Monterrey, it's a matter of in the summertime, because everyone's turning on their air conditioner. The other thing that happened in Querétaro, Robin, is let me tell you another thing about the power in Querétaro, is that Querétaro this year experienced the hottest summer that it's ever experienced in a long time. So people in Querétaro, people in San Miguel, like in my house in San Miguel, I don't have an air conditioning. We don't have air conditioning units at all because it was always fresh. It was San Diego weather all year round. What happened in Querétaro is that it got so hot, people started installing air conditioners, started buying portable air conditioning units, started buying window air conditioning units, so you can imagine the pull on the electricity when you have an infrastructure that's built with, oh, okay, well, the consumers here in Querétaro consume this much electricity, so we need this much in our power plants and everything else. And all of a sudden, wow, this surge in air conditioning. And that's what's happening in Monterrey. Everybody turns on their air conditioning, and that's normally when a transformer blows. So it's improving. It's improving. It's improving. And you're not going to see as much. The infrastructure is there to build on. It's just a matter of Mexico building the infrastructure. And trust me, they've gotten a wake-up call, and they're doing it. Here in Monterrey, they're building a couple of more water plants, or they call them presas, which are lakes, water holding facilities. They're doing a lot of stuff. And VW Chisme, my father who passed away has property in Ensenada and La Paz. What to find out where his property stands at? Okay, actually, VW Chisme, one of the things, I don't know if your father left a will. If your father left a will, it's not too hard, because basically you go to the notario, you open up the will, and the notario takes care of doing all of the paperwork to transfer the property into your name. Now, in Mexico, of course, you're going to be but here's the difference though. Usually in the United States, if you don't have a will, it goes to the first surviving kids or whatever. Here, it goes to the whole family. So it would go to you, your kids, your brothers and sisters, and you have to divide it unless it's in a will. What you'll have to do if there's no will is you'll have to start a process, which you can do at a notario. You have to get an attorney, and you start a process called an intestado. An intestado is a process which basically said this individual died without a will. It's kind of sort of like, I don't know how you explain it. It's kind of sort of like when you go, when a person dies in the United States and you put the estate in, what you call it, now I'm escaping, I'm getting old. But it's the same thing, but basically, what you do is you start the court process. Here's the only thing. You need to get a good lawyer, because an intestado can take a long time. And all of that stuff, like, for example, if the property taxes have been paid or they need to be paid, all of that stuff your lawyer will take care of during the actual will process or the intestado process. Now, if you had a will, then all you would probably have to do is your lawyer would find out, okay, what kind of taxes did he still owe, or is there still money owed, or did he leave it to somebody else, or is someone else living there? What you need to do. But if he left it to you in a will, then you should be really good. This is one thing that I always tell people. We have a U.S. will that also can be interpreted, but we're in the process of doing our Mexican wills. So we're going to have one in the U.S. and one in Mexico for our properties. And it's very important that you have a will, because your surviving family members can have a hard time, and the intestado process can be very easy or it can be very long, long and drawn out process. Robin says, makes perfect sense. Yeah, Querétaro kind of ran into a problem where they weren't expecting. And this happens sometimes in all, it happens everywhere where cities don't plan. I mean, even in the United States, I remember living in a couple of cities that they just didn't plan for the growth. And, and then all of a sudden they were playing catch up. And Gringos are, they're also widening a lot of roads in Querétaro and in a painful while they complete the project. Yes, Querétaro has started getting a lot of traffic. When we were living there, it was probate. Yes, probate. And intestado is like putting your thing in probate court. The only difference is when you probate a will, for example, if you have a will, your probate, you just give the judge your will, and then they probate the will. But intestado is a probate process in Mexico, equivalent to the probate process. But it's the same as probate, because like in probate, if you don't have a will, then you have to go in front of the judge, and then whoever has claims to the property can say, you know, I'm the great-grandfather, not the great-grandfather, I'm the mother, the daughter, and the brother and the sister, and my father told me this, and I have this little note that they gave me. All of that stuff, it's the same process in Mexico, but it's a little bit more drawn out. The one thing you have to remember about Mexico is that Mexico, and I'm going to tell you right now, is that Mexico is a very bureaucratic country. So the court processes, suing somebody here. I mean, you think suing somebody in the United States is a pain and it takes 6 or 7 years? Here, there's lawsuits that stem several generations, believe it or not. So it's a very different legal system and bureaucratic. The government system is very bureaucratic. Deanna J. And I thought the weather was amazing about 4 weeks ago. Yeah, think a simple fan was very adequate. Too bad people using air conditioning. Yeah, actually, Deanna, the heat wave that Querétaro, you probably are hitting a good time because it's cooling down. The heat wave that hit San Miguel and Querétaro was pretty much towards the beginning of the summer. And that's why I'm also saying that, and Terry said probate, yeah. And actually, believe it or not, I should know because I've been in the legal system for years. But like I said, my mind's going a little bit. But like I said, Querétaro, it got really hot. And San Miguel, the same thing. We weren't there in San Miguel. We were here in Monterrey, and we were suffering actually 110-degree weather. That heat wave is gone. So actually, Robin, you'll probably see if you go to Querétaro, it's not as bad. The electricity problem is probably not as bad as it is here in Monterrey or in other areas because it is cooling down. And you're also not going to see this in the wintertime. It's going to be, the summer is the worst time. Kai, gorgeous house, Ernie Amlet. Can't wait to see a house tour video. Did you say you had an architect design it? Yeah, we had an architect. Actually, this was based on another house, and we modified the plans. We wanted the house to be open, and we wanted it to actually, the way we built it, and the only tour that we're not going to give because we're still completing is the master bedroom and the master bathroom and the laundry room because it's still a work in progress. But we wanted to have access from every room. Wherever you are in the house, you have access to the patio. And if you look in the back, you're going to notice it's kind of an L shape. So for example, in the kitchen over to my, well, I don't know, I guess this way, hold on, this way, you'll see that's the kitchen. And from the kitchen, you can go out in the patio. And then if you look this way, oh, hold on, this way, I'm sorry, because it's reversed on the camera, you can see a hallway, and that hallway, you're going to see that's where my studio is, and our guest, it's kind of serves as a guest room if we need it, with its own bathroom. And that goes out into the patio also. So, and it's all glass all the way around with steel. These are steel beams on top of me. Right up here is steel beams supported by a steel thing right there, a steel beam up and down. The rest of it's aluminum. And then if you'll see over here by the other side on the chat, we have a little interior. No, it's not a garden. It's kind of a garden that interior space with natural rock wall. And we haven't put solar panels in yet, but we're going to. That was one of the questions someone actually texted me there. We're going to move to Monterrey and who I was using for solar panel. We haven't done that yet, but we're going to. This whole living room, especially when you see how big it is, we have actually two 2-ton units running, air conditioning units running in this living room to cool this whole area. It's a very open area. We chose to be minimalist this time. If you look at the difference, I'm going to post my pictures or my house on Facebook. But you'll notice we have a lot of art, a lot of stuff there in San Miguel. Here, we decided with the industrial minimalist look. So with a very minimal amount of furniture, very spacious, very functional, only one floor, one story. You're going to find a lot of the houses here in Mexico are 2 stories. And the reason for that is there's not a lot of property. We moved out and we were able to get a decent sized lot. And we got a decent sized lot, so we were able to put a patio, but we were able to build a house around the lot so we could actually, and it's only 2 bedrooms, and we put that house around the lot in an L shape so that we would have a patio, but at the same time we have access and a lot of room. So this is kind of our forever home that we're going to eventually, we wanted to make it functional so that we can get in and out. We don't have to climb upstairs. And we have a lot of square footage in the house, but it's very functional design. And Wilfredo, what's the name of the lazy guy? It's actually a little girl. Her name is London. We have 2 mini huskies. She's a mini husky. We have 2 mini huskies. She's one of our she's actually what they call a Pomsky, a mix between a Pomeranian and a husky. She does look like a husky, but she's just a small version of a husky. And that's London. And we have another girl. Her name is Paris. And she likes to lay around a lot. And she likes to eat a lot too. And the other thing too that we have is not only do we have London and Paris, but we also have some adopted little girls outside. And actually, I'm going to get some footage of I think I got some footage of our adopted. We have 2 Actually, it was a whole pack, but unfortunately, 2 of them passed away. The 2 that still remain, they share their time between our house and they go with the construction workers and live with the construction workers in the evening. But we've taken in 2 stray dogs that stay outside, and they pretty much get along pretty well with Paris and London through the window. So regarding the bank, want to open a bank account in Mexico, transfer U.S. funds to it, and pay out from it like a notary for their services. Okay, VW Chisme, the bank issue, the bank issue is you're going to need to have residency. I think Intercam was offering bank accounts at one point to individuals just on a passport. I don't know if they still are because they passed some new laws, some new tax laws that everybody had to have an RFC. Actually, everybody over 18. And then there's been some question as far as residence. And actually even SAT was only issuing at one time RFCs to permanent residents, even though the law was kind of saying that everybody had to get one. Uh, but you can, if you are a resident, if you have residency here, or if you are, let's say you are let's say your father was a Mexican national, you can actually get your Mexican citizenship. Just go to a consulate. I don't know what your personal situation is, but you can open a Mexican bank account with that through being a Mexican national. But I use TransferWise I use TransferWise to transfer money from my U.S. account to my Mexican account. There's another one called Remitly. I don't know how that one is. They give good exchange rates, but I've never used them. But there's one called Remitly and TransferWise. Those are the most popular ones. Don't use the dollar app. Please don't use the dollar app, no matter who tells you that it's the best exchange rates. The dollar app basically is cryptocurrency. Basically, what you're doing when you're depositing your money is you're supposedly buying cryptocurrency and transferring it, and then you sell it on this side. It's a mess. And actually, somebody in an Ahihi group and actually they're trying to give referral links. People are trying to make money. I think in TransferWise you can do the same thing. So don't use this dollar app because there's several issues. The first issue is number one, one of the company that's involved in the cryptocurrency that they use, Coinbase, is under SEC investigation right now. The actual executive officers of the dollar app basically ran away from the UK. They fled from a company called Revolt, which is under investigation in the UK. And also, just because they're a Mexican-based company, they use a US-based platform and they act like a bank. So there's even questions as to the banking regulations that they fall under. And you just don't want to have your money there. I'm not saying they're doing something wrong, but just because you're in Mexico, oh, hey, I just got a new barb, just subscribe. Just because you're in Mexico or they're operating in Mexico does not mean they're immune from the U.S. laws. There's U.S. laws under 18 U.S.C. 1960, the money laundering laws, that when you remit money, if you act like a bank and you're remitting money, you have to have a license, and they don't have a license that I can find anywhere. So don't use the dollar app. And Streetcar named Desire was asking at anyone, what's the issue with using AC in Mexico besides the affordability? Actually, it's the affordability, Streetcar. Most people will get panels. Here's the other thing. Then I'm going to tell you what the issue is with air conditioning, but it's kind of changing. Actually, we didn't get our house built this way, but it's actually changing now. In Mexico, everything's built with block and cement. Okay, so it's not like the United States or in other areas where they're wood frame homes where you can run what do you call it? Where you have a place where you can put ducting, what do you call it? Air ducts, yes, where you can put air ducts and stuff like that. So in the United States and Canada and a lot of places, you have like a central air. Here, there's not really any place to do it. What they're doing now in Mexico is they're raising the roof a little bit and making like kind of a false roof. And then that like little area between, they run ducts. But we didn't know that they were doing that. So basically what happens is we have what we call mini splits. They're an individual air conditioning for each room. So what you do is you have to go from one room to another. And of course, if you're running, we have two 2-ton units in the living room. We have a 1.5-ton unit in the studio. We have a 1.5-ton unit in the master bedroom, and we have another 1-ton unit going towards the bathroom. You can imagine running all of those air conditions all at the same time. It can get very, very expensive. So the issue is you just got to get used to, we left the living room, we turn off the living room, we go in the bedroom, we turn on the bedroom. So you have to be judicious. A lot of things with, you have to be judicious with, oh, shoot, we left the living room, especially in our house where it's two 2-ton units. running all day when we were sitting in the bedroom all day long. So you have to be a little bit more conscientious about where you're going to be. Now there are some of these mini splits that use less energy. It's getting a little bit more energy efficient, but that's what the air and the problem that Mexico has, the government has, is that you can imagine everybody turns on their air conditioning at the same time. Let's say I turn on all my units. Basically, I'm maxing out my power in my house if I turn on every single air conditioning unit. Now, if I had a central air, it would be a lot different. Mexico, a lot of people, a lot of architects are going towards that natural central air, but there's no place for me to put air ducts, so I can't do central air, and that's just the way construction is here. So that can be your biggest issue with air conditioning. Wilfredo, talking about wise, the dollar and peso getting some steam. Where do you think it's going in your opinion? Like I said, the dollar and the peso, I don't even know. The peso is getting strong, but there's a lot of things that are going to be factors. A lot of this nearshoring, and also there's a lot of money remittances to Mexico. But we don't know. There's going to be a change in the U.S. president next year, and there's going to be a change in the Mexican president next year. And actually, we may have the first woman president here in Mexico. The one that looks like she's ahead is Claudia, which is from the Morena party, which is the same party which is from the current president, and she's doing very well. And so we don't know what the relationship's going to be, what the trade, but the dollar, the peso is losing steam. It went down below 17, and it's at 17.6, 17.5. I honestly think it's going to stabilize around the 17s, in the 17s. And normally, even when it was at 20, it would go up to 21, come back down to 20. It usually stabilizes at a certain amount, and I think worst case scenario, maybe it might stabilize at 16. The other thing that we're seeing, you're going to see the strength in the peso, not the peso, but in the dollar, is with the upcoming election. Every election, even with the Mexican elections, you're going to see a big change in the exchange rate. You're not going to see anything really super stabilized until after the two elections. We don't know what what the policies are going to be. And BW Chisme, I have citizenship waiting on my INE. That's perfect. As far as a bank, we use BBVA. Any major bank, I would just stick to a major bank. For example, because I use BBVA and I had to transfer some money to buy my house here, and I didn't have any issues with BBVA freezing my money. I didn't have any issues with the other thing you want to get, BW Chisme. The other thing is make sure you get once you get your INE, get your RFSA, your RFC, because to do any kind of transactions or anything, even now when we purchased our house, our property, and you're probably even going to need the RFSA settling out your father's will, or if he didn't have a will, doing the intestado. But we had to have an RFSA before. You didn't have to on the escrituras. Technically, you don't if you're a foreigner, because foreigners can buy property here. But the RFSA is the big thing, and even to get a bank account now. When I got my bank account at BBVA, the RFSA or the RFC, it's a tax ID number for all of you that don't know what an RFC, or you're wondering. You have two numbers here in Mexico. You have your CORP, which is a national ID number, and your RFC. Your RFC is your actual, both of them are kind of equivalent to it. So, and actually for Mexicans, it's the INE. It's a national ID number. People, it's both the INE and the RFC are kind of like in your social security number in the United States. In the United States, you only have one number. In Mexico, you have two. And one thing, BW Chisme, and actually all Mexican citizens are supposed to have the RFC. Make sure you get that RFC, and and get with make an appointment. It's really easy. The only thing is getting an appointment, but the I guess the congestion at the SAT offices has calmed down a little bit. And gringos are us. Yeah, a pool. We had a pool, 5 out of our 6 Airbnbs, and some were large and some were small, but they all feel good when the temperature rises. Even better at night. Yeah, and a lot of people have pools for that for that reason. Um, Let me see, Steffi. Fun fact. Actually, I want to know this fun fact. Fun fact: a very early expat was the father of a famous African American poet, Langston Hughes. That might have been in the 1930s or so. He was a successful businessman fleeing racial discrimination. Actually, Steffi, a lot of historical figures, very famous, and believe it or not, a lot of artists fled. And actually, there a lot of back in the 50s and the 40s, there was a lot, and a lot of people were, the McCarthy era is what they called it. A lot of people fled the United States because they were being accused of being communist and stuff like that. A lot in the intellectual community. Believe it or not, when we went to Ajijic, Ajijic has a very rich history of people from all over, artists, and actually not even just Americans, but or Africans or African Americans or all sorts of artists from all over the world that were fleeing their country from some type of political situation, and they settled. There was a big group in Ajijic, and one of the things that they brought with them is they took the local people and actually taught them how to. And actually, if you go to the cultural center, I believe some of the art or some of the wall mosaics and stuff like that actually come from way, way back in the day, where these artists came in and brought their art to the Mexican people to try to give back to the Mexico for giving them a place to stay. It's very interesting. Oh, Sedona, I had a good experience with Remitly. I transferred money from my U.S. checking account before my trip and picked up cash pesos when I arrived in Mexico. Great. Thank you very much, Sedona, for the feedback because I've never used it. My brother-in-law uses it. That's how I knew about Remitly. Also, they give probably the best exchange rate. When I check TransferWise, you can put in how much you want to transfer, and then they'll do a comparison. I don't know what Remitly's fees are, but it's pretty close. What is the VW Chisme? It's not an RFSA. It's an RFC. It's called an RFC. The RFC is your tax ID number. It's with SAT, which is the tax. SAT happens to be the tax authority here in Mexico, and they issue the RFC number. You're going to have to get your INE first, and then what you do is you go to the SAT website and you make an appointment wherever you live, and wherever you live, the SAT office closest to you, you make an appointment, and they will issue you an RFC. An RFC is used for any kind of like you buy a car, they'll want your RFC. They'll either want your INE, they're going to ask you for your INE, or they're going to want your RFC. They do a system here called facturas. That's how people pay their taxes here. This is how they know certain business. For example, when you buy a car, the tax authority already knows how much you paid for the car. The tax authority already knows how much to tax the dealership, because the tax dealer, the dealership has to issue you a factura, but they have to issue a factura to you, and you have to have that RFC. You can't have a lot of business done without an RFC. It's RFC, and just go on to the SAT. Let me see the SAT. Let me see if I can find it here. I think it's sat.gov.mx. Let me make sure that's it, and I will post that. Yes, actually, I'm going to go to my screen. Hacienda. It's sat.gov.mx, And this is where you do all your trámites. And then here's the other thing. You want to get your e-signature. And that way you can log in and you can do all of your stuff. And if you actually owe taxes, like for example, let's say you go back and your father still owed taxes on the property or whatever. If he owed property taxes or whatever it might be, you might have to have an RFC in order to pay those taxes. You're going to have an RFC. That's the way they're going to actually identify you to the tax authority. It's like having a social security. When you file your income taxes, you have a social security number. You file it with your social security number. And then someone also, okay, Terry, okay. Yes, there is a 35% capital gains tax if you sell your home in less than 2 years of ownership. That is true. We purchased a condo a year ago, but have found another place and we like better for the location and view. Yes, you have to live more than 2 years. It's actually, I believe in the IRS gives you, in the United States, gives you the same kind of, if it's your home, if you lived in it, actually, I would think in the United States it's more than 5 years. You don't have to pay any capital gains tax. It is, the capital gains tax here is very steep. It's 35%. We luckily in San Miguel de Allende have owned our house for over 5 years. I think actually we're going on 6 years now. So we're going to get the tax credit. That's another reason why you need an RFC. For example, when we get the tax credit, in order for me to claim my RFC and I claim it with Hacienda, I'm going to need to. The other interesting point is being from the United States, when I sell my house in San Miguel de Allende, I still have to report it to the IRS. Doesn't mean I have to pay taxes on it, but I have to report it. It's a reportable event. It's a taxable event, what they call in the United States. A lot of people don't really know those kinds of things, and sometimes they can get kind of banged up in the process. And also, you might want to look at my video on the FBAR. If you ever hold more than $10,000 in your account at any point in time, that's even if it went through, like you transferred it today and you took it out tomorrow, it still went through your account. You have to fill out an FBAR with the United States. It's called a foreign bank account request with FinCEN. Kai, why are you less stressed in Mexico, Ernie? What is it about? You know what it is? You know what about Mexico it is about less stress? And I'll tell you what, here's the thing. You can get very frustrated because certain things can move slow or the government can be bureaucratic. But one thing I've learned is some of those, first of all, you learn to deal with those frustrations because in the United States, we want everything, we want it now. You learn to have patience, number one. Number two, sometimes that slow bureaucratic process can be more relaxing than having to go get this paperwork, do it now and do it tomorrow and have it by close of business by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Those are the types of things that you face in the United States. And you know what? It's not just that. It's just with anything. When I go back to the States, it's like I'm stressed out all the time because it's, I don't know. And you know what? Even driving on the road, it's kind of like here, people kind of drive aggressively, but then you get used to it. And then it's kind of like a way of life. And I started sitting there thinking, actually, all of these frustrations, I'm kind of lucky that I'm worried about, you know what? My plumber didn't show up today, but my plumber's not going to cost $800. So my plumber didn't show up today. He shows up tomorrow. And I pay $30 for the same thing I would have paid $800 for in the United States. And I learned patience. And you know what? When you start learning that patience, all of that stress goes away. That's the truth. And the problem that I think a lot of expats have when they move here is it's like, I can't believe this. I can't. And I see it all the time on the Facebook groups. I'm not criticizing anybody. It's culture shock. That's what it is. It's natural. This is going to happen. You're going to go through this. And actually, I see a lot of people criticizing on the Facebook groups. Oh, you know, you're just another Karen complaining, self-entitled American. No. What it is a person that's going through something that they have never gone through before. And I'm not defending them, because some people feel entitled. Yes, I'm not going to deny that. But what it is a frustration that things don't work like they work in the United States. Things don't work like they work in Canada. Things don't work like they work in the back of my country, especially like with customer service. Try to return something here. Good luck. Those types of things. But once you start adapting to all of that, you're going to find out that it's a lot more relaxing than just, I mean, when you're in the United States, you go to return something, you're yelling and screaming at the guy for no reason. And here, well, I know I'm not going to be able to return it. And the first time I yelled and screamed at the guy, it didn't do nothing and it didn't help. So who cares? You know, those are the types of things that that make me feel so relaxed here. When I'm in Mexico, I feel less stressed because I don't watch USA News. Yeah, and you know what? I don't watch US News either. And it doesn't bother me when I suddenly realize that it isn't anything. And actually, you know what? I don't watch news. And that person that made that comment the other day about Biden, I even said, I don't care who's president. To me, I really don't care, to be honest with you. I live for I live in the present time. I live in Mexico. And what affects me? What is affecting me? What political situations are affecting me? And that's what I try to bring out in my videos. What's going to affect you? You know what? We all come here for different reasons, and we all need to respect each other's reasons. Whether it may be, you know what? We have some people that don't like to get vaccinated. We have some people but we can't put each other down because of our views. You're in a different country now. And you know what? Don't worry about vaccines. Don't worry about all of these things. Worry about living a beautiful life in Mexico. That's all you need to worry about. And when you learn that, then you live a less stressful life. And you know, I have really, the more you assimilate to the culture, the more you enjoy the culture, the more you actually, even when you say, you know what, there's no customer service here. Yeah, but you know, or I'm waiting in line because this guy's taking forever to. Yeah, but you know what I learned? And actually I learned this in Brazil. You know, in Brazil, it's the same thing. To check out, you wait in a line that's way out the door. And the first time I got there, I was like, this is ridiculous. They should be rushing people through. But then all of a sudden, what I found is I was talking to the person next to me. I never did that in the United States. People start talking to each other. As a matter of fact, we're sitting there talking, having such a great time talking that by the time I get to the front of the line, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot that. And actually, the guy's like, hey, by the way, you're next, you know? And those are the kinds of things you can do here in Mexico. You can enjoy, you know what? I'm gonna go to the grocery store to relax. And you know what? I gotta sit in a long line. I'm gonna sit in a long line. And I'm gonna relax in that long line. Because I don't have anywhere else to go. I don't have anywhere else to be. And why am I going to stress out because the checker's being slow? There's no reason to. And that's what's beautiful about here. Robin, what about tipping in restaurants and taxings? What's the norm? Robin, I'm going to tell you you're going to see a lot of people make different comments about this. Tipping is a very big, sensitive subject with expats because we're so used to in the United States tipping. Some people say don't tip anything because then you're going to encourage the gentrification and they're going to expect more. Let me tell you something about restaurants and taxis. They work just like they work in the United States. They work for next to nothing and they work for tips. So it doesn't work any different than it does in the United States. They don't make an extra salary or anything like that. What is normal? It's normally around 10%. Also, one thing that you'll notice, sometimes you'll get a service charge on your check and they'll tell you that includes the tip, but you need to be clear because sometimes that service charge may be because you have more than 6 people or whatever. So be clear and ask them, is this a tip? But 10% normally is what we give. If they give us good service, I give 15%. Just like waiters in the United States, they'll tell you. A waiter in the United States says, hey, I make nothing. I work off of tips. And if I did a good job, give me a good tip. I mean, what's wrong with that? And just because you pull out, I don't know. Let's say you just fell in love with your waiter and you pull out $100 and you decide to give him $100. Well, I know that there's a lot of people that'll say, "Oh no, you give $100. Oh no, they're just going to change it." No, you know what? If you give $100, that's up to you. That's on you. And I'm not saying to give $100 in a tip, but 10% is normally normal. But also tipping is normal here. Some people will tell you not to, and some people will tell you because, especially in tourist resorts, because people tip very generously. That's why people want to work there. The Mexican nationals want to work there. And then they're saying no, but then the locals, because they're going to start making more money off of tips, and then they're going to bring that money, and then the other people, they're going to price the other people out of the neighborhood. You know what? It's all an excuse to just say, I don't want to give anything. Okay? Give something. If they give you good service, give something, even if it's 5%. But 10% is the norm here. And Terry, I think there's less stress because the Mexican people are very welcoming to expats and don't hear any politics or on a daily basis. And that's true. People here, Mexico is very welcoming. Actually, believe it or not, I've done a lot of videos on immigration, and, they're only giving 30 days. They're not giving the 180 days anymore. Well, there was a period where they weren't, and now they are. And I actually was on a podcast as an immigration. I was talking about immigration on the Unconstrained podcast with Miles Wakeham, a very famous podcast. And he was asking me about immigration in Mexico. And he was telling me he was having, and at that time he's moving to San Miguel de Allende, and he's building a recording studio for a lot of people, famous people that he knows from back in the day when he was recording. And I was talking to Miles on this podcast, and I was trying to say, because we were talking about the long lines and what Mexico was experiencing immigration-wise, and I actually had to tell Miles, I know this is frustrating, but, Mexico's actually trying to help. It sounds like they don't want us here because the financial solvency requirements are high, and it looks like they're being jerks because the border people that running to the border, or people that were making repeat entries, all of a sudden weren't getting 180 days anymore. All of that, Mexico, they're losing revenue. They don't like us. No. That's not the point. Mexico loves you. Mexico wants you here. As a matter of fact, there's programs, and that's what I was explaining to Miles. Mexico had a very big population of people that couldn't afford to meet the financial solvency requirements that were living here for 10, 15 years. And instead of kicking them out, they started the regularization program. They could have easily said, hey, get out of this country because you don't meet the financial solvency requirements and you've been living here for 10 years illegally. And I mean, literally, people weren't even running to the border. People were just coming here, letting their visa expire. So Mexico actually is trying to help. So Mexico is a welcoming country, okay? All they're saying is, let's follow the rules. All they're saying is, hey, you know what? We'll give you a chance. Regularize, go through a regularization program. You know what? We're going to give you a chance. Yeah, but we're going to still have these financial solvency requirements because eventually we want everybody to just come in legally. Is that too much to ask for? So Mexico is a very welcoming country, even if you think that their residency requirements are too high or too out of. No, they have other ways. Just like we were even talking about the family reunification program. Actually, they kept the regularization program open longer than they ever intended to. So Mexico is a very welcoming country. Steffi, any gentrification blowback? I've gotten this question a lot of times. Let me tell you something. Gentrification, I do know that, and I'm talking about in the press and everything else, Mexico City has become a very hot topic. There are certain neighborhoods in Mexico where literally everything's in English. They've kind of, how would you say, priced everybody out of the neighborhood. A lot of digital nomads. But we've seen a lot of this news in Mexico. I'm not in Mexico, but in national news in the United States. We've seen a lot of this news, and there was even a movement, I think, in Mexico City where they were putting signs on the posters, not on the posters, on the poles saying "Gringos go home" and all sorts of stuff. But that's not the case for all of Mexico. You know, if you're gonna find, as a matter of fact, it's funny because I'm okay. I'm brown. I'm half Mexican and half Puerto Rican, and I speak Spanish. Right away when I speak Spanish, first of all, my Spanish isn't perfect, and so everybody knows, and my accent is different. So everybody right away knows, hey, you're not from here, and you must be American. And like I say, I'm a pocho. Is what it's a derogatory term. Yeah, I know it's a derogatory term, but I call myself a pocho. And but when I start talking and they say, "Oh, where are you from?" and what the United States and everything else, you know what? They love to just have a conversation. And where did you live? And oh, I love Houston, or I love this, or I love that, or I went to Disneyland. And I've had some of the most interesting and passionate conversations with the Mexican people. And you know what? Even when my Spanish is like, it's funny because I use the derogatory term because I even tell people, yeah, yo soy un pocho. And I tell them that. And they even start laughing. And even though that the Mexican people might have this kind of derogatory term to say the, Mexican American, or a person that, doesn't really embrace their culture. But when they see that you embrace the culture, they don't look at you as a pocho. They even laugh like you're just making fun of yourself. Ha ha ha. They look at you as like, wow, there's a person that wants to be part of this culture, and they love it. I mean, I've had some of the most fun times out in, actually, we had in San Miguel, the girl that works for us and her husband, he also does work for us because he helped build our house. Actually, that's how we found her. We were invited to her, their daughter's birthday party. And we had the best time out there, and their whole family treated us like family. And it's beautiful. And there's nowhere else that you can do that. There's nowhere else I know of that you can just go and become part of somebody else's family just because you just met them or you just know them. And, it was so funny because, Homero, which is the husband, said, "Oh, this is my boss." And I said, "No, I'm not no boss." We treat them just like family. And that's the way it is here in Mexico. And if you learn that, they treat you like family, just like you treat them like family. And it's like having family, literally. Even the people that work for you, it's like your family. And Brett Jones, actually, welcome, Brett. I haven't seen you in a while. And welcome back to the stream. Actually, Brett has a lot of good. Brett is a very good source of information. He's helped me out a lot with a lot of information. And he was saying, I live in a non-expat neighborhood and I don't have to deal with all the drama. Yeah, that sometimes living amongst the local, we live among all the people. Actually, even in San Miguel de Allende, believe it or not, everybody in our neighborhood is from Mexico City. Only one person's from the United States. He's a retired NASA employee that lives in our neighborhood, but it's all people from Mexico City that own houses in my neighborhood. And Terry was responded to Brett. We didn't look for an expat neighborhood, but we ended up in one. However, everyone seems to have left all the drama back in the U.S. Well, that's a good thing. But sometimes the drama can follow. Oh, Brett. Oh, that's why you've been away. He's been on a European vacation, 2 months in Istanbul and another month roving around. We'll be home in a couple of weeks. Well, thanks for dropping in from wherever you're at. Actually, it says you're not going to be home for a couple of weeks. I don't know if you're back in the States or still in Europe, but thanks for dropping in. Actually, I always enjoy having you, Brett, and your insights, believe it or not. Brett's even corrected me on a couple of things. Remember how I always tell people that I'm not an expert, and sometimes I've been corrected, and Brett's done it. And Wise Owl used to correct me a lot. He knew a lot, and so does Nerd Uno. He knows a lot. He lives here, or he knows a lot about Mexico, and has helped me a lot in making sure that I get everything right. Okay, so we've gone past our hour. Anything else that anybody else wants to say? Because I like to try to keep it at an hour. My next live, hopefully, because like I said, in Cozumel, what happened to me in Cozumel, and like I said, I don't know. I even took a hotspot. I have a hotspot. And so I'm figuring, okay, I'm going to have my hotspot. I have good cell phone coverage. And I don't know what it was in Cabo. Literally, I got 3G, barely any cell phone coverage. The minute we left the property, I had LTE coverage, perfect coverage. I don't know why, but I sometimes I'm convinced. And then the hotel was charging like $20 a day. I had to pay like $80 to get internet for my iPad to. But I'm actually going to check with. I don't remember that we stay at the same hotel. I don't know if they charge extra, but their internet is not really good. I don't know if I can get a better internet connection or my hotspot will work a little bit better. But if I can work it out, I will do a live stream like I did the last time. I had a lot of fun doing that live stream. I did it from my iPad from a mobile app that I use, and I'm probably gonna not take my laptop with me, and I'll just take my iPad and I'll do that same thing. And hopefully we'll see you soon from Cozumel. And like I said, just giving you a sneak peek of the house. And hopefully I'll have that house video out really soon. And thanks for all the well wishes on the vacation. We leave, well, not tomorrow. We'll be on the road Sunday. But tomorrow we're going to go into Monterrey, spend the night with my in-laws. And the girls, one of them, who's the lazy one right here, one of them, is going to stay with their grandparents while we take a nice week. So I'm going to be heading out of the house. If I can't answer any of your questions right away, also just remember this isn't a full-time job for me. So I also have a life. So sometimes I don't get back right away, but I try to get back to everybody if I can. We'll talk to you soon. And as I always say, stay safe and stay informed. Till next time.